Welcome to Journey to Service. I've already lost track of how many episodes we have, but welcome back. We're again joined by our guest of honor, the gentleman who is running for mayor, one of over 80 people, I understand. I don't call him Lord anymore, but hello, Randall Kaiser. How are you?
I'm wonderful, William. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know how many are signed up yet. I haven't put my name in yet into the official books or whatever. We're just waiting for the right moment, accepting the divine energy, and we'll get it in there when the timing is right. Everything is perfect, moving toward complete. So,
well, that's an interesting comment to make, actually, and I think maybe we'll just jump into that a little bit too. It sounds to me like there's an instinct or a kind of a gut feeling, if I can call it that, that you go by. Is that how you kind of operate in life these days?
well, it might sound crazy to a few people, but most of the people that I communicate with regularly will understand. When you quiet your mind and you basically try to stop thinking as much as possible, you let the thoughts pass through, obviously, because our minds can't stop thinking. But when you're quiet like that, oftentimes you'll connect to what I'll call source energy. Get too carried away if we just say the word God. I guess I can say it because that's what it is. And it's just that divinity that's within every living being, let alone every human. And in fact, every cell, live cell that's in us. There is a divine energy there that is flowing through us. And if we sit quietly and listen, then the words that come to us in that quiet time are usually from a space of love and compassion and kindness and gentleness and harmony and those kind of words, because that's what God is. That's what love is. That's what source energy is. When we talk in terms of human constructs like politics or business or any of those other things, a lot of them are illusory or illusionary, like it's just someone making something up and then other people following along, right? So, without getting too far off into space here or anything, I just leave it at that I think in terms of acceptance and surrender to that divine harmony, and my life is a lot easier when I do that than trying to control something or manipulate something. So I have no interest in that. I have no interest in manipulating or controlling my way into politics, if you want to use that word, for being the mayor, or when I'm there. It's going to be the same way. And it's not a woo-woo way. It's a very conscious way, and it's a caring way, and it's compassion for everyone and everything every day. So I think that's what we'll go to.
All right. Fantastic. I want to jump back, but then I'm going to jump into some other comments around what you just said as well a little later. But first of all, I wanted to find out how the week went overall. Like you did already mention that you haven't, put your name in yet because, you haven't been called to do that yet internally. But what kinds of things have transpired this week? I mean, we had a pair of big weeks, earlier this month where you had some interviews with some, people who are fairly prominent online and, sort of the alternative news media type folk. But, we've passed that stage now. We're on to something new. What kinds of wonderful things happened to you this week?
Well, let's start with the regular mayoralty stuff that I do. And that is, basically getting the pulse of the people. So I walk around, as most people are aware by now, that I just continue to walk around the city and I strike up conversations with the average Joe, or Jane. And I'm, using that term not lightly. They're people and they are the human beings that are in my city that I want to hear from. So I'll listen a lot to these people. And, oftentimes they'll come back with, well, what's your platform? I'm doing all the talking. Well, I'm here to listen. That's what I'm here for. And I want to hear what you have to say. If it's not from a selfish perspective of, I want this, or I want my taxes lowered, or I want this, or I want that, well, then I'm prepared to listen for 15, 20 minutes to each individual that I come across. And I found some really, really unique and individual creators out there this week. One fellow in a dog park that I sat down with for probably 15, 20 minutes, and he had some interesting perspectives on global warming. And I just listened, not that I agree with what he was saying or disagree with what he's saying. It became obviously a huge political issue. These ravens are just getting all excited here, flying over. Anyway, it became a huge political issue, and it still is. But as far as I'm concerned, Mother Nature looks after herself, and humans, as much as we think that we can manipulate or exploit Mother Nature, we really can't. And if we leave, Mother Nature will still be here with all of her harmony and beauty. So I'm not a running down what the fellow was saying, but I just listened and I said, well, as far as Mother Nature, I'm totally that kind of a human or a mayor who's going to promote natural food, natural processes, natural infrastructure progress that we're going to obviously still have to a certain extent. I think the growth of the city itself is going to start to slow down. I mean, another one of the fellows that I ran into this week talked about demographics and population quite a bit, and his words are very true that, you know, North America in general, and especially Canada, is not seeing a duplication of our population. We've lost that 2 or more a long time ago, and in fact, on our beautiful Mother Earth, we've lost that. So we've started to decrease rather than increase the population of Earth. So, you know, that being said, do we need to move people around in immigration processes? Well, not so much anymore, because we're going to look after that with this new monetary system that's taking place as we speak. And I'll speak to that on a private and a public basis in a few minutes after I kind of go through this last fellow that I met. And he was a volunteer for the city of Calgary for many, many years. He's in his 80s, fit as a fiddle, going around with his little stick, picking up cigarette butts right down to the littlest bit of garbage that he could find in his park, Lindsay Park. And he calls it his park, and I can commend him for that, because that park is just spotless. He looks after it on a daily basis by the looks of it. But what an intelligent man, talking about all of the processes. He knew all the mayoralty candidates and sitting mayors for I don't know how many years, and he talked, you know, a little bit of anger at times, but a little bit of support at times, and it was pretty much nothing but support by the time I just put in my 2 bits here and there and gave him what I thought about what should happen in our city. And yeah, that was kind of the way it went. And those were 3 instances, but you know, many more, because I have no concerns or hesitation of just, you know, walking up to anybody and starting up conversation if they don't first, you know, like usually it's, or not usually, but a lot of times it comes with, wow, that's a pretty fancy hat and tie you got on there. Well, then we dive into the mayoralty thing. If you're going to be a mayor, you got to have a get up. And I do that all the time with people too. So, you know, it's getting out there. We're getting more and more communication happening there. The signs and the public, you know, beyond social media, which we're getting quite a bit of support from, William, and you know that, not only on our channel, but through Facebook and various other sites that are picking up on the fact that this is the next mayor. And that's the way I speak, because I'll use my imagination. And that's one last thing I'll plunk in here before we go on, but is that since the current mayor has already said that he's resigning, and there's really nothing going on as far as decision making other than silly illusory stuff to do with this you know, mask wearing and stuff, which is slowly but surely just disintegrating into thin air, because it's all an illusion and it's all just nonsense. So, you know, why not just say that I'm already the mayor? And that's what I do. I put it on our videos and stuff, that new mayor of Calgary right here, because, you know, nobody else is there. he's left, or he's saying he's going to leave and he's really doing nothing. So there's no decision making going on that is conscious at any means. It's just, you know, same old, same old. Okay, we'll you know, consider that this part of our taxes goes for that building construction over there, or to build these streets or whatever, which is all bunk, because there's no such thing as taxes paying for all of the things that go on in our city, let alone in our nation or in our municipality or our province. That's just games that they play at that media level and that political level to keep people thinking that there's, you know, some kind of a budget and there's some kind of budgeting going on. There's no budget. They just spend money and they create money based on the bond between you, the creditor, and especially at the government federal level, okay, corporate federal government level.
Well, in a sense, then, aren't you kind of saying that that will actually continue from how it has been to how it will be with you as mayor?
Well, you know, it's going to be a transition, obviously, because most people still believe in taxes, you know. So if they want to, you know, argue about it and still think, well, we got to pay our taxes so that we can have something built. No, you don't. We're just going to create the money, because that's what's happening right now. The transition, nobody can stand in front of me and say how money is created. Nobody. And I can say that it's based on bonds between you and your consent. And in the case of the birth certificate bond, your fraudulent consent, because they didn't tell you that you're giving their consent to make money, but they're just creating it. There's no debt. That's just the utter ridiculous illusion. So if there's no debt, then there's no limit to the credit that we can create in society to look after the comfort of every human being and to expand projects. But we'll talk about that later.
Sure. Well, you know, in the game of golf, a sport that I love so much, you have a caddy that helps you deal with all of the little issues so that you can focus on just getting the best game out there when you play. And so sometimes the caddies will even do things like put the ball on the tee so you can smash the crap out of it. Well, I kind of feel like you just kind of set me up with a whole bunch of good stuff here. So I've been taking notes furiously. But the biggest thing is, you just said it, is debt is an illusion. And that happens to be the title of your new book. And your new book is going to be coming out pretty darn quick, at least in an ebook format. And that is going to be, like I said, the name of the book. So I'd like to delve into that a little bit. You mentioned just a moment ago that money is created out of thin air, literally, by the use of a bond. And you discovered that in a very unique way. Can you share a little bit about the story of how you came to discover that? You know, you don't have to go through into full length, because we want to leave, you know, some mystery for the readers of the book. But can you give us a little bit of a sort of an overview or a synopsis of how you actually discovered that for yourself?
Well, it became, you know, fervently obvious when I went into the bank after, you know, a foreclosure operation on my own personal property. And when that happened, I couldn't get back the autographed contract. So I said, well, where is it?
We're not talking about a copy here either. We're talking about, you know, the original.
That's right. So this is, you know, this is a real simple explanation for folks, and they can go through this little process themselves. Just go into your bank and ask them what happened to that paper. And then say, well, from my perspective, if that paper is not available to me now that you, or, you know, now that you say I owe you money, or now that in my case, you've taken my assets, then where did you get the money? Because it seems to me that that promise is what gave you the capability to go to somebody or somewhere and either create that money or get it from somebody else up the line. And when you go up the line, when you get to the top of that line, there's got to be a creator of that money somewhere. There's got to be a manifester. Sorry, I like to use that word manifest because it's all documents and autographs and paper, agreements. So the AU and the AG. But you know, before we go too far, I want to just go back to the book, like, and say to folks, like, we're the best way to get to know a candidate, I think, is to really dive into their mind. And in a lot of cases, it's going to be these meetings, public meetings or forums or whatever, like that kind of stuff. And I don't mind that. It'll come along in time too. But if people really, you know, think I'm out there and strange by saying that we're going to have comfort income for everyone, well, then they can go to this book. And it's only a couple hundred pages long, so it'll only take you a couple hours to sit down and read it. And we're not doing it from becoming rich and famous over the proceeds from a book. Danusha, the writer of the book, the ghostwriter, but she's not a ghost because her name's Danusha. William, being the editor and the publisher, and myself basically being the narrator, are going to just split the proceeds. And the fourth portion, because we're splitting it 4 ways, is going to go to some charity. So we already made those decisions when we put this book out. So it's more informative than anything is what it is, to let you know who and what I am from a 3D perspective of this mammal that's sitting here.
And I'm gonna add to that too, because like you mentioned, I've got a little bit of a input into this too, and the cool thing that I found, like just to expand on one of your comments that you just said a minute ago, is what I found the book to be, and I've said this a few times on video, is when I first started following your channel, I wasn't sure if, I mean, you were speaking you're saying such things that you are consistently still saying today. You haven't changed your tune in any way, but it just seems so out there and so different than what, well, let's put it this way, what my conditioning taught me from what I know. And there were times when you were so lighthearted about it that I was wondering if you were even being serious about it. So there definitely were times when I was watching the videos going, I don't know if I want to keep following this guy. I'm not sure if he's all there or not. But what I found with the creation of the book, which was so important, was it filled in the gaps. It showed me more about who you are, how you came to those conclusions. And you're right. I think that people will really be able to see and understand who you are as a human being, as well as, you know, as a mayor. And I think that there'll be a lot of value in that, because I think it'll answer a lot of questions, and it'll make sense of some of the things that people may not understand from the comments and statements you make on, you know, shows like this and other interviews on your channel. So it's a fantastic resource for sure. And, you know, your channel will obviously be for those that, you know, don't want to buy a book or whatever, but which is totally fine. But the idea is, if you really want to find out who you are and understand what you're claiming, which is quite different than most candidates have claimed and probably will claim in the future, I think it's a great thing to follow. And what I was fascinated by was some of your journeys to what I'll call the Far East, you know, places like China and the Philippines and Indonesia. Can you share a little bit about some of your experiences in those countries, just as a teaser, to let people know a little bit more about that time out there for you?
Sure, William. That's, you know, it was what I was thinking about sharing anyway. So I kind of like to think in terms of a private life, as in that realm of money as well, because I'm in the banking world, right, in that system. And then my public presence here as the mayor of Calgary, to expose and to encourage the idea of comfort income for every single human being. So most people are familiar with that who've watched a few of my videos, and especially our interviews here, William, because I'll bring it up every time, and remind me if I don't, because that, in terms of my mayoralty walk in the park, is what I'm here for, is to expose that fact that money is unlimited, credit is unlimited, cash is unlimited, currency is unlimited. So Therefore, comfort is also unlimited. Comfort for every human being. And I'll never stand down on that. Okay, so does comfort include infrastructures and roads? Well, that's kind of up to the communities. Once they get to this aspect of money creation in their mind, if they want to create in a public sense, who am I to say no, you know, beyond the comfort of the human beings and to get everybody their food, water, and shelter. But on a private level now, that's where my number of journeys overseas started me into this process. And not only there, but here at home, I've met people and account holders in these, you know, far out there realms that sit on and keep and hold, and in some instances think in terms of ownership of these massive collateral accounts, collateral backed accounts. Okay, so that's what I discovered when I was overseas, and I never laid my hands on or saw with my own eyes, but I was right next to people and talked with many people who had seen hundreds and hundreds of yards of treasure hidden away in caves, you know, and that's only just, you know, treasure and stuff. Then there's gold bars. Everybody knows that the Vatican was sitting on thousands of tons, if not, you know, more than that. I don't want to put numbers on it because it doesn't matter. It's just an unlimited amount. Same with the crown, you know, like they'll talk about that, and anybody that wants to look online can see the Queen standing in places where there's these gold bars claiming that it's hers and stuff. And in that case, the Queen, yes, that is an ownership situation. And whether they want to call it managing directors or owners, that ridiculousness there is what it is, you know, talking about ownership the way they do. That is for humanity. And that's what all assets are for, because it was mined by a certain number of people and then they called it mine, you know, like the whole mind and mind thing. I love that. And then it becomes a mind game, you know, like we've got this illusion of money that has been holding us back from this big release that's happening now. So I'm going to go into that just a little bit on the private side. When I say big release, these asset holders and keepers, not the ones that think they're directing and managing and owning, but these holders and keepers of these large accounts are now able to, because the system broke down, the system that was holding these accounts off ledger has broke down to a point where those funds are coming through and they're actually being seen on screen. Okay, and on screen, there's various screens in the banking industry, from black screen to blue screen to green screen. Green screen being basically what the bankers see at the retail level. However, when you're bringing these off-ledger accounts that have been set up, and don't get me wrong, not all assets are off-ledger in the banking system. There's a lot of it just sitting out there in caves or still to be mined out of the earth, in the veins of Mother Earth. All kinds of assets that way, whether it's gold, silver, bronze, whatever, you know, you want to put on those kind of collateral assets. And all of that is unlimited. And now it's coming through to the people. Now that is more on the private side, okay? So it's private project funding. So people will talk about what we refer to as ZIMs and dinars and old paper notes and bonds that they're going to claim. Well, if it's for yourself, the chances are that there's not going to be a lot of value there, other than, you know, stamp collection value, or, you know, potentially more than that. If you've got a project in mind, then maybe there's some, you know, kind of value there. But in terms of these asset-backed accounts, then it's all about project funding, okay? And project funding beyond the typical globalist agenda project funding that's been happening. So if anybody thinks that Walmart or I don't know, in my city here, Brookfield Industries or any of these other large investment banking projects are paying interest or paying anything back to a system, you're dreaming, because they're not. They couldn't function. They couldn't sit empty downtown here in Calgary for the last year and a half and have a 20% vacancy rate and not see those companies go broke. That just wouldn't work. So they're not paying anything back. They're just credit lines, okay, that have been created through this creation system that was in place and that still exists. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the unlimited potential of this project funding that's coming through now with actual physical assets to back it, if they want to continue to create in those realms, we're not holding anybody back. We're not saying no to any of that. If they want to create at the government level, the only thing we're asking there is to admit that it's the people that they're creditors of the government monetary system, and they better damn well admit it, or else just stop that too, okay? Because it's just a deceit that's been going on and a fraud for too long. And everybody that I know, and the more people that are spreading the word of that fraud are compassionate enough to say, look, just move out of the way. Don't worry about it. We're not going to come down on you. We're not going to, take anything from you. Go and take your pension or whatever you're doing and just leave, because we're coming in with a new system that is unlimited and that has the potential to look after everybody without this ridiculous notion of taxes or debt. Like, those two things are moot points in this new system. So
now you mentioned something a few minutes ago in your, actually one of the previous answers, I think, or maybe at the early part of the last answer, that if you, let's say you own a home and you have a mortgage, and when you first bought the home, you signed some documents and you put your name on it in ink, wet ink. And then that was, when you got the mortgage, it was filed with the bank. And like you said, if you want to verify, that document, just go into the bank and ask and see if you can actually get your hands on that original wet ink copy. And I believe you didn't quite say it, but I think what you're ultimately saying is you'd be hard pressed to get your hands on that wet ink copy anymore, because it would be next to impossible to get it back. What I was thinking about when you were saying that too was, I was thinking about my own personal situation, for example, but I'm also thinking about people, again, I've mentioned this before, but credit cards. I mean, with credit cards, you don't even sign anything. You just have a contractual agreement, or at least that is the apparent vision, that you have this agreement that says that they will create, they being the banks or the credit card company that's associated with the banks, create the money for you to use out of thin air, but then you owe them for using that money. But there's, as far as I recall, there was never a wet ink autograph at any point to get that credit card, was there?
A lot of cases, they just don't need it anymore. It became so easy to just get your promise and your consent, mostly your promise to pay back. And, like by autographing, whether it's a e-autograph or a wet ink autograph, it became easier and easier for the banking system to just say, okay, that's good enough. We don't need the wet ink signed anymore, which the wet ink signed one was actually potentially traded with people that may have had some of these collateral assets even, so they took it in a collection, and then they pretended it, like I often say, it's like a stamp collection. Okay, we got some value out of that, so we'll give something back. We'll make a contribution in some, ether realm again, to say that, yeah, go ahead, you guys can go ahead and credit those people now because we said so. It's all just illusion anyway, and it's all just permission and promises and consent.
So I want
but it's go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I wanted to confirm something. It's just a simple, it's just another way to confirm what you've been saying on every one of our episodes. But the bank is already doing what you say that we can do. In other words, the bank creates money out of thin air. And I know that you would verify that, but you're basically saying, well, you know what? So can we. And in fact, we actually kind of are. We just don't know that we are. And then we end up giving our power and literally the money that we created away to someone or something else. Do I have that right in my brain? Is that the way you see it?
Yeah, exactly, William. I mean, you're right on. We are creating public money every day. That's us. We're the creditors. We're the creators of public money in that government realm, if you want to call it that. That's what we do. And the only thing is that we don't know that. And they keep it from us and just say, well, no, we're creating the money and we're giving it back to you in form of benefits, and we're building infrastructure and we're this and we're that. No, you're not. We're the creditors, we're the creators, we're building, we're doing all of it. It's the people, it's not the government.
So ultimately, what you're saying here, and I'm smiling because I think if people were to really get this could, this could really change a lot of things. And in fact, we are going through that change, but a lot of people still don't know that we are, unless they've been watching, people like you who've been speaking about this. But in essence, you could turn around and say to the credit card companies, you know what? I think I'll keep my money now. Yeah, I've created it, but I don't think I'm going to give it to you. I'm actually going to keep it for myself. Thank you very much. And there wouldn't be anything wrong with that, really, would there?
Other than your own guilt, it's just that shame, blame, and guilt game that that you're trapped in yourself. Like you want to continue your own suffering and play in that illusion, but then the chances are, because the way it was set up, they're not going to give you another card, right? Once you use that one, they're just going to say, okay, this guy caught on, but we can't get anything back from him. They usually sell it to a credit chaser, like some some outfit that's set up to buy your credit for 10 cents on the dollar and then get whatever they can out of you by threatening you and intimidating you over the phone and everything like that. That's generally the simple way that works. So I mean, I don't want to recommend anything to people. Like, it's your own choices and your own life that you have to live. And if you still believe in the shame and the guilt of credit and debt, well, then continue to do what you're doing, while we, in these upper levels of banking and above these silly government organizations and in the common law jurisdiction levels, above that legal jurisdiction, which is the corporate, ridiculous legal jurisdiction. Oops, hold on a second.
You went dark on me, but I can still hear you.
Yeah, I just had a call come in, but I hit it off. I'm good. Yeah, it's up to you. Like, it is such a personal choice, it is and that's where we have to get to eventually, is that inner knowing that we are the creditors, we are the creators of everything and everything that's external is an illusion. And if that illusion fits you and your perception and you're comfortable, then just stay there. I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to say, follow me or anything like that. If you're comfortable paying a mortgage until we, as in the people who are correcting this system, get to a point where we say to you, okay, what is comfort for you? What would pay your mortgage and get your groceries on your table? If you want to still continue to pay your mortgage, what would that amount be? Somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 a person is what, or per human being, per each people, is going to be where we get to, right? So you're, generally, if your home is conservative, your payments are going to be around that $2,000-3,000. I don't know, something like that. So if you have a wife or if you have children living with you, each of those people, okay, children being people as well, are going to get this comfort income, so you can pool your money, pay your, and then if you want to do something, this is where I differ maybe a little bit, because I think in terms of that being a conscientious socialism kind of mentality, and then on the conscientious capitalism mentality, you can go out and earn more money and do a job for someone and earn more, and then have a nicer car or go on trips, more trips. Your comfort income could give you enough that you could put a little bit away for a trip or two. But, if you just want to sit at home and collect that comfort income, which I don't believe people are going to do, they're going to continue to want a little bit more because we all do. And that wanting can fit into the idea of a trip. And if you want a trip, well, then maybe I'll work at a project or with this corporate government existence that's still going to have to be there to administer processes. I don't know how much infrastructure work is going to go into the private sector or how much is going to stay in the public sector. I can't predict the future of that. People are going to have to decide, but the choice is going to be there for them to choose, because we're moving this system and there's no stopping it. There's going to be unlimited amounts of project funding. And if those people that are doing the projects decide that they need a road into their project, they just build the road themselves. It's put the water system in themselves. Then there's no government involvement at all. It's just just done, because the money is coming as funding. It's not coming as a financial investment or speculative, pay it back to somebody. These are funds that are coming through.
In other words, put another way, you can do anything you want to, and you can create the money for it. But what I'm starting to realize through just, the things that you're sharing is, at some point, I think the money is going to become irrelevant. I think that we're going to have so much of it. This may sound a little outlandish, but just with comfort income, and then you'd be able to create more income if you want by doing different projects, through helping other people, that literally you will have more money than you will know what to do with as an individual. And therefore, I think at some point, the way I'm seeing it, like if I'm going sort of into the future a little bit, is that money's going to become irrelevant. And you just say, okay, well, I'm just going to go ahead and do that if it makes sense to me and supports the community, and the community supports the idea. Does that kind of jive with the kind of future you're seeing, or are you kind of leaving the future alone? Because all we have really is now.
Yeah, well, and yeah, you're talking about the future, and I don't mind going there. We can talk about it. At this point in time, this now moment, a medium of exchange is needed. So when we build a project, we'll share money from the funding with the people who build the project. So the medium of exchange is a sharing and giving, but it's one-sided. It's not giving back, because it's coming from funding. Then the sharing happens, and that's it. That's the end of the line. You do with it what you please from there. And you're probably going to share it again. You're going to buy things, which is sharing. And it's such a simple concept. And as far as going to the next step of not needing any money, I did a little show just an hour before this one with the fellows who are kind of the founders, and there's many of them, don't get me wrong, but they're founders of, I call it, of GPMS, which is they refer to it as the Global People's Monetary System, which is, again, I'll say it's a transitionary situation, because they're still talking money, right? But eventually getting to that stage where money doesn't, have to be. But that's a very spiritual and a collective conscious aspect of us understanding our true creative value and connecting to that divine source energy that I started this little interview today with. And, there's more and more of us that are comprehending that capability that we have and getting into those realms on a spiritual level to really realize that our capacity to create is unlimited. And, everything that way comes from the inner, which of course still includes some judgment or discernment. But when it goes to the outer, there's nothing in the world of condemnation. So we're not going to condemn people for doing things that they're doing. Okay, like if that creation comes from within, you're already at a stage of not doing any harm, because there's only the law of God or the will of God that comes from inside. That the rest of that ridiculous stuff of harming somebody comes from the ego and comes from the outer. And that ego and outer has been a challenge for humanity, but we are ascending through it. I can't say that, we're living in hell. I think we've transitioned as a human race, and we're continuing to transition through this. And it's beautiful to see it happening, William. And I think you see it as well.
I see a lot of, let's say I hear a lot. I don't know if I see it that much yet, but I mean, there are definitely hints of it. There definitely is talk about it. There's a lot of things happening in that sense, and it's exciting. And I always get excited when I start letting my thoughts and my ideas wander into that realm and think about things of how will it be like? What will it be like? And just yesterday, I ran into there's a thing I watch every week. It's a live call, and it's around money and it's around creation. And one of the things they mentioned at the very end, just a really quick little story, which I thought was fascinating, is we had been trained and indoctrinated to earn our money, to always, like even as a kid, like we were given an allowance, but usually the allowance was attached to some condition, like we had to cut the grass, or we had to do this, or we had to do that. And this woman brought up a very interesting question. What if we paid our kids to play? What if we paid our kids to come up with creative ideas? What if we paid our kids and supported them make it like almost like a reward system? And to me, that would be very much more in alignment with the kind of thing that you were just talking about as far as the world that we're creating and moving into, is we are rewarding creativity in a sense, or we are encouraging creativity. I mean, let's think about it. If you don't have any, like, how many times have people ever said this to themselves? Oh, if I didn't have to do this job, I could then go and travel the world, or I could really do that thing that I've always wanted to do, but I didn't think there was any money in it. All of a sudden, now you can do it, and you don't have to do anything you don't want to do anymore. And those kinds of things will be taken care of in a different way, in a creative way. And I've heard of like the one thing I have heard of, in answer to your comment earlier on, is I've heard there's a lot of amazing technology that is just waiting to be released, but has been suppressed all this time because of the old system. They didn't want us to have the kind of technologies and the things. And I won't even mention what they are, because I think it'd be more fun just discovering them as they come. Some will be quite shocking, I think, for people, but just the concept of what some of these things can bring will be completely amazing. I mean, we may not even need roads anymore. Our vehicles may float in the air, so why would we need a road anymore? So there's all kinds of fascinating things that I could go down, but and we're running out of time here too. I wanted to bring in I hardly even talked about the book. We just talked about one little vein, and we went deep in the deep end on that vein. But I think I'll kind of end it on a lighthearted note with one final question, and then Randall, I'll let you of course do the wonderful blessing that you do to end the broadcast. But in the book, you will find every chapter has a quote from John Kenneth Galbraith. Actually, I think at the beginning and the end of each chapter, if I'm not mistaken. And you've mentioned him a couple of times. Can you speak to us a little bit more about him, why you like him so much? Where did you discover him, and what he's all about?
Well, there are certain political leaders that speak authentically. Okay, like the current one in the US and the current one in Canada, no authenticity whatsoever. Like these are just puppets, right? And they may actually just be actors. We don't even know. But John F. Kennedy was obviously a highly intelligent man, and what actually happened there, I'm not going to go into a bunch of details, but I think that some of his wisdom came through John Kenneth Galbraith, who was a Canadian, and then he fancied himself an economist, but I don't know if economist is the word to describe him. He was more of a philosopher and a, philanthropist than anything, I think, and just a beautiful writer of words. And so, yeah, that's who John Kenneth Galbraith was. Or yeah, I think he passed away, I'm pretty sure. But he was an advisor for John F. Kennedy. So again, this will bring me around to finishing it off, but I wanted to mention one thing. You mentioned creativity, okay? And I want to share this little hutch that I'm sitting in, okay? Because it's quite a little structure. I'm on the edge of over there is a natural area. I forget what they call it, or at the end of Englewood. So most people in Calgary would know names, but I'm not. I'm not one for names of things. But it's just a stunning little park. I took a picture of a baby fawn there the other day that came out, a video, and I posted on my YouTube channel if you want to go there. It's just stunning. But look at this structure here, William, because it's built. I don't know if you can really see that, but it's built in a design that allows, on a day like this, that's 31 degrees, I believe we are already, and it might be going higher. And it allows the breeze to come through. And I've been comfortable sitting here for an hour. It's just beautiful, And I think in terms of how that took some creative, artistic, architectural design, like it's not just a flat roof on top of, some posts. It's beautiful. And people need to get paid for stuff like that. You're right. Like getting paid for creativity. Artwork is wonderful. There's some situations where I kind of wonder how governments, say that that's worth $1 million. Like, I don't know, but there's other artwork that I think is worth a lot more than what people, are able to scrounge out of it in this day and age, So art is an amazing thing. And again, back to John Kenneth Galbraith, and a word artist. My goodness, like the quotes that are in the book from him are just stunning, The one quote that I often say, and I'll say it one more time to end this video off again, is that under capitalism, man exploits man. Under communism, it's the exact opposite. In other words, it's the same damn thing. So don't think in terms of politics anymore, folks. Think in terms of creationism, creativism, whatever you want to put on that, and know that that is unlimited. Both those other two things, communism and capitalism, are limited, illusory illusions. Okay, they're just drawing you into a game. So be creative, be loving, be kind, be forgiving of these silly politicians that really don't know what they're doing. They're just trained and indoctrinated. So please just move out of the way. Let the creationists come in. It's all good.
Awesome, Randall. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there at this point. I think we've kind of gone full circle almost, but the key thing is that we still have much more to talk about regarding the book. So in future episodes, I definitely will bring up more elements of the book. I mean, we only just asked one question or two about the book so far, but there's a lot more that we can kind of pick away at. But we'll leave that for a future episode. It was kind of fun today. It was nice to do, like normally we do our interviews in the early evening, but we decided, because it's a hot one, not only in Calgary, but also in Vancouver where I am. It's also a hot one here right now. All of Western Canada and Western US is getting very, very hot. So, but it was kind of fun to do a late morning interview. It was a nice little change of pace.
Timing was right, because all we need to do is give you our final blessing, greeting, whatever you want to call it. I guess I'll call it a blessing, with peace, harmony, love, abundance, and freedom for everyone and everything every day on our minds. William and I saying abundance, sovereignty, health, love, and euphoria. Keep thinking those things, folks. We got this. We love you.
Bye.
Love you, William.
Love you too.